Welcome back to the Productized Podcast. I'm your host, André Marquet, and this season 19, we've been exploring the theme of creating change together with Productized 2025. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Blagoja Golubovski. With over 25 years of experience, Blagoja has scaled B2B SaaS companies from scrappy startups to IPOs and acquisitions. He's a product executive who knows how to turn a product into a true growth engine, not just a cost center. Currently, Blagoja is VP of Product at UserCentrics, a company with a mission I find really inspiring. UserCentrics helps business around the world navigate one of the biggest challenges of our digital era, balancing data privacy with data-driven growth. And their belief is simple but powerful. Data privacy and innovation don't have to be at odds. In fact, building trust is the foundation for long-term business success. And they serve companies like Daimler, ING, Santander, many others. UserCentrics processes more than 61 million user consents every day across 100 plus countries. I'm pretty sure you've used it yourself. That's creating change at scales, turning compliance from a checkbox into a driver of trust and growth. And Blagoja will also be speaking at Productized Conference 2025 on Roadmap to Revenue, redesigning product orgs for the AI era. Blagoja, such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, André. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. But before we get into product orgs and scaling, startups and SaaS business, let's start light. How would you introduce yourself in one sentence beyond just your job title?
That's difficult. So I usually say I help product organizations stop being feature factories and start being growth engines. That line usually comes from all the scars that I've gotten over the years. I started as an engineer, then moved into design and product over time, and then into product leadership. So along that whole way, I've led, like as you mentioned, different orgs at a different scale through IPOs, acquisitions, all of that, I've built global teams, shipped products for millions of users. And of course, I've shut down a bunch as well. So
that's where the scars come from.
That's where the scars come from, and exactly.
Not an easy part, right? It's a part where you actually scratch the skin, and
you have to be proud of your scars. When you get that cut, it hurts. Over time, it becomes a badge of honor. And this is I say this quite a bit. It's when you realize that most product orgs really don't lack talent or effort. Product people are smart. They're full of hardworking people, and a lot of times their structure and how they're set up and how they operate, it's usually what kind of hinders progress at scale.
Mm-hmm. So let's maybe go that way a little bit. Part of the title we have at the conference this year, I mean, that the big team is creating change together. What does it mean to you in the context of product management and the teams that you have worked with?
So product management, is a collective change by definition. No PM really can ship anything by themselves. So you're constantly aligning engineering, you're aligning designers, marketers, sales, everybody around you, customers, around an idea that doesn't, or around something that doesn't really exist yet. So creating change together as a collective really means that you're building a shared conviction. So it's not just convincing others about your roadmap. It's helping everybody see everybody see the problem and believe in that outcome that you're after. Everybody's committing to that same experiment that you're doing. So I remember at this one company, we had, I'm dating myself back then. Mm-hmm. We had a big push on going from on-prem to SaaS. Okay, this was the thing back then. And you can imagine for engineers, it felt like a big technical challenge. For sales, it felt like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose sales. I'm gonna lose existing deals. What are we doing? For customers, it felt like a big risk. We're going to cloud. What's going to happen to my data? Is it secure? And we only really made progress when we reframed the change as a shared win. Okay, you have faster upgrades for our customers. They get code. They get features immediately. You have recurring revenue for our sales team. Okay, that's a win. You have a cleaner architecture for our engineering team. Look, it's much easier to maintain, to push. So everybody kind of came around and saw this as a win. Everybody saw themselves in the outcome. So that's kind of like when change is able to stick and not just stay at the talk level.
So you've recently moved to Lisbon, I guess last year, from what I've seen, and you have this new challenge now at UserCentrics. How are you finding the city so far?
I love Lisbon.
You've been living in the US for, I guess, most of your life, and of course, the US is a big country, and you've been moving around east and west, and Texas, and so on and so forth. But now you're in Lisbon, right? So very different country, very different kind of culture, very different kind of product maturity inside companies. How are you finding the product status quo and the working environment and all that?
So I've lived most of my life in California. So I moved here to Portugal from the Bay Area, from San Francisco, where I've had all of my career, actually. And what I found here in Portugal is that there's a lot of similarities with California. A lot, from a lifestyle standpoint, from that chill vibe where everybody's just relaxed. And people are ambitious. They're after trying to make a change. All of those things are very similar too. It just reminds me of California. You may not like this. It reminds me of California 20 years ago. Okay, California was exactly like this, like 2 decades ago, 2.5 decades ago, and I have this, deja vu now that I'm here in Portugal, because I feel like we're onto something as the tech scene is building out more and more.
Does that mean that we are 2 decades behind, or we just have the mindset that is 2 decades behind, but it's still the right mindset to do things?
It's when I say 2 decades ago, I mean the opportunities that were present in California 2 decades ago are here now in Portugal. So there's a big opportunity in front of Portugal when it comes to the tech scene.
That's a very bullish way of seeing things, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you can see this. You can feel it when you're here. You can see companies are coming here. There's a good there's a good amount of talent in Portugal. The country is very attractive so you have other Europeans coming to Portugal to work in the tech scene. You have Brazilians coming to Portugal to work in the tech scene. So you have access to a lot of human capital outside of Portugal that is attracting this talent here, and companies are noticing. Companies are coming here, and it is transitioning from just an outsourced location where you kind of go in, you hire engineers, and you get the job done, to more of this is a strategic place for us. We're going to build our company around Portugal, and we're going to bring leadership. We're going to run our business from here, and that's the shift that is starting to kind of take place,
including product management, leadership, which is obviously your case, but also product management in general. So what's one challenge in product management today that you believe desperately needs change?
What's one challenge? There are many, but the biggest challenge I feel that that product management, and I'm going to speak from what I kind of see and observe here in my new environment, right? Is that I see too many teams still celebrate, output versus outcomes. So you've heard this. We talk about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
We love these. Yeah, we love these metrics that that kind of measure velocity, measure story points, they measure how many features you've shipped. But velocity only tells you how fast you're going, how fast you're digging. It doesn't really tell you if you're digging in the right spot. I've worked with a team in the past where we really celebrated big time how many points we had in the sprint and how fast we were going. We were getting better. We had cake. We big time celebrations, right? And when we look at the product metrics, didn't really move much. Adoption barely moved. Revenue, not much. Customers, some noticed, most of them didn't. So when you're sprinting really hard in the wrong direction, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make any difference whether you're fast.
So you were there at that company at that point. So what was that small but powerful mindset shift that has helped you drive change in your work from output to outcome, from those points in that you're making, from velocity, I guess, towards the right directionality?
It happened for me personally. It happened a little bit later. It wasn't right there for in that particular instance with a company. I was at a different company. But basically, it's a very small one. It's a very small, powerful shift that basically in the mindset where you stop asking what do users want, and you start asking, what problem are we solving for our customers, for our paying customers? And that sounds very, very subtle, right? But it changes everything in how you look at things. Users will always ask for features. Customers really want to pay for solutions. They want to pay. They want you to solve their problems. So when you reframe the conversation that in such way, you stop being a feature taker. Build me this feature. I need this feature. I need this feature. And you start being a problem solver. So I also give this example where, a VP of sale asks me, hey, if we just built this dashboard, this new reporting dashboard for my customer, we're going to close this huge deal. If we would have said yes, we would have sunk months of effort. Instead, we kind of reframed it together with my sales team that let's understand what the actual pain is here, because build me this dashboard. It's a order taking, and once you start digging into the pain, you see what the customer actually needs. And in this one example, basically, it was they wanted more transparency into their data. They wanted to understand XYZ, and we basically, in that case, we solved it. We solved their pain by building a very, very tiny, very light integration. So instead of sinking like months of effort, we resolved it in a sprint.
Right.
And that just goes to tell you, if you understand what you're trying to do, there's a much more effective and efficient way to help your customer solve a problem rather than just taken as it comes from outside.
All right. So let's take that specific example. So if I understand right, you were just heading towards the dashboard solution, but suddenly, I don't know if it was you or someone in the team said, okay, let's just dig deeper into the actual problem of the user. And you found this other solution that was just, easier to implement. So in your experience, what holds product teams back from doing this more, from driving real change? Is this a mindset? Is this a structure? Is this a cultural thing inside orgs? Are this because of incentives are not aligned? What's like the main thing?
I think I have to say what holds product teams back is I have to say incentives. Okay, because when we I've seen brilliant teams, okay, with the right mindset and even flexible structures. But if the rewards are not on the right things, they will never change. Okay, so if you look, you actually, you don't get the product you plan for. You get the product you reward, which is why
You
I say
reward
it's
for.
you reward for. And by the way, reward doesn't necessarily mean money. Reward can mean many different things. If at one SaaS company back in the day, the product team's performance really were tied to delivering milestones, kind of like what we were just talking about. You hit your roadmap commitments, good ratings. You miss a date, bad ratings. So what happens? PMs, they pad their estimates, just like engineering. Engineers played it safe. They always, they would not want to look bad, so they would pad their timelines, they would pad their risk levels. Everybody optimized for predictability. Okay, so and then when you look at the whole situation, the org looks quite efficient on paper, but customers really saw very little innovation. Things did not move as fast, and you're optimizing for predictability in this case. Now, look at the other side. When you contrast that with a team that success is measured on an outcome, like I don't know, like an NRR or adoption rates or churn or whatever it may be, something that actually measures outcome. All of a sudden, you have experiments that they become safer. So kill a feature was actually a celebrated thing if it freed capacity to do something else. Which is in the previous example, you would never have that, because then you're not delivering what you said you would deliver. Mm-hmm. Versus if I kill this feature, now I have resources to do something else that will actually move the metric that is an outcome centric. And in both of those cases, you kind of see a very different behavior, very different drive, all driven from incentives, all driven in how you measure success.
So just as a segue to that, how do you help product teams? So now you have a product leadership role, and I guess from your talk that you gave last week, by the way, great talk. I had a chance to be there and listen to it myself. One of the things that I took, just to give a little bit of context. So we were at this event that we organized at UserCentrics called Productized Talks, and we had two speakers. The first speaker being the former head of product at Unbabel, and then your talk. Leaders have a different role. They have a different role of PMs that don't have that kind of experience, and this plays to my question, which is in what is holding product teams back from driving real change? And you said incentives, but what I took is that the product teams would still need to unlearn some of the habits that used to work and then realign towards these new incentives. How do you do that in practice with the teams that you work with? Is it just a question of changing incentives and then everything changes, or is there a more formalized framework or practice or way of doing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the hardest thing is to unlearn yesterday's success. So if something made you successful in the past and now that doesn't work anymore and you need to kind of change strategies, unlearning that success habit, it's extremely, extremely hard. So
Mm-hmm.
an example of this is let's take roadmaps. At an earlier stage, a detailed roadmap gives confidence. It gives confidence to investors. It gives confidence to aligning all your teams, everybody. That works, okay. But as the company grows, some of those habits really turn into liability in a way. It slows you down. It locks you in. It punishes agility. You can't adapt as fast. All of those things. So when I help teams unlearn, I start. I don't really. I don't start with stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I start by I begin with showing them data that proves that all habits is failing, and for that you really need to consciously take an effort to sit down, break it down, whatever problem, whatever situation you're in, and have an honest conversation. An
Mm-hmm.
example of this is like, I ran a session where I had we looked at 10 big roadmap commitments. 10 it's a lot, but we had all of them on the map, on the roadmap. So how many of them actually shipped on time? Half. How many moved the metric we really cared about? 1. So all of a sudden, the team sees this pattern. It's like, okay, we're doing all of these things. We're busy. We're executing. We're providing visibility. We're getting alignment. All of those things. But really, what really makes a difference is this one thing that we just did. So then, when you replace that level of thinking, you start switching this rigid roadmap, which are planned for strategic bets. What I like to call strategic bets with a hypothesis. And so instead of putting a date, you have each incentive is a statement. And it's a statement where you say something like, we believe feature X will improve, adoption by Y%
So it's more
within
of an hypothesis.
It's a hypothesis, but it's a hypothesis that tells you, we're going to do this. This is the outcome that we're expecting, and these are the results that will follow based on that outcome within this time frame. So it's very clear on what you're after, what is the benefit for your customer, and what is the time frame in which you will observe this benefit. And once you actually have that, it gives you accountability for the teams that is outside of do this XYZ, and that's it. You're done. It's really difficult for people to transition into this way of thinking once they've had success in the past. So it's harder to unlearn something that kind of got you to the point where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Also because success habits become dogmas, and dogmas become religion. And once you have religion in
That's
place,
right.
it's a super hard thing to unlearn by definition. All right. So, but hypothesis, it's a more scientific method approach.
I would say
Inspired, educational,
overwhelming, very practical,
challenging,
thought-provoking,
meaningful,
enthusiastic,
nice people,
innovation, and fun.
Product growth mindset.
new connections.
Join us at the coolest product management environment this October in Lisbon.
And one of the big things that arguably has come to the AI tool landscape for, I don't know, last 3-4 years is the fact that most of these tools are now incorporating AI features. What role does some of these AI features, and you can put whatever you want in there, from LLMs to more predictability algorithms, actually play in creating change in product orgs? what has been working for you? What have you been testing? What has been hyped and not really providing any value from your experience?
I mean, look, AI is not going to fix the product org.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. What it does is removes all the excuses that we have. So in the past, for example, a team would say, "Hey, I'm strapped for time. I can't really analyze this feedback that we're getting. It's just too much." Or you have this competitive research that it takes weeks to complete. Having AI, this is no longer, you can no longer say that. That's not true. You can mine thousands of support tickets. You can look at what the competition is doing, you can scrap what they're doing on the web, extremely efficiently. You can generate prototypes and
Things
tests
that were
in hours.
super time consuming and labor intensive can now be done, in minutes or hours.
Correct. A lot of call it excuses from the past, just because a lot of constraints that we've had in the past on time and resources, they're no longer excuses. That's no longer the case. So the hype that AI will replace PMs or designers, that's exactly what it is. It's a hype. The reality is that it really exposes whether your product strategy is clear. Do you have a product strategy? If you don't know your customer's problem, AI will just help you ship something wrong faster.
Right. Like
So
a self-fulfilling prophecy, just reinforces whatever it's there.
That's right. I mean, I saw a team once auto-generate a spec. Great. That's amazing. You can do it much faster. Wireframes, yes, perfect. And we had this like AI-driven feature. Super proud. Did an amazing job. But if the feature doesn't really nail the problem, however big the problem, it doesn't have to be a massive problem. It can be a small problem. You're just gonna ship junk faster. That's kind of like the reality. Where if you, on the flip side, if you use AI as a force multiplier, you can summarize different patterns across customer conversations. You can generate test cases. You can bring higher quality products. You can analyze market signals. Then that really frees the PMs to focus on judgment. They can focus on vision. They can focus on the problem itself. AI is not going to fix
Have you been able to do that?
We're trying. It's a journey, and this is our goal. Yes.
So if a PM is listening tomorrow, and let's imagine this PM is maybe someone working for UserCentrics, wanted to start driving change, what's the first step you'd recommend? And I say it's a very broad question, but taking stock of what we just said before.
I would say start with one uncomfortable question. And that is, what is the smallest thing we shipped recently that actually changed customers' behavior or revenue? Could be behavior or revenue. So what is one thing that we shipped that actually changed customers' behavior? Most PMs really can't answer this quickly. And that's the point. And that's the point. The first step is build the awareness. Without awareness, you can't really change anything. Once you ask that question, you'll see how much of your backlog is just motion, is just busy work. So from there, run an experiment. Okay, pick one, like the lowest performing feature that you have in your product. Kill it. Just take it out. Reinvest this energy into something that really, something that is working, something that is highly desirable and used. And by the way, this is purely symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
But it really shows, it sets the stage. It shows that you're serious about outcomes, not just building features on top of each other.
So it's more of a ritualistic kind of thing. So what's and I guess you're going to be with us also at the Leaders Day of the Productized Conference, which by the way is happening before the conference at the Cloudflare offices here in Lisbon. And it's it's leaders and people that have been doing product leadership positions. And the previous question is more what's uncomfortable for what's something you would recommend for PM in your work, but what's an uncomfortable truth for the product management leadership that also needs to be confronted today? Because what you just said about killing something is probably something that is more towards the leaders than the actual PMs, right?
Well, no, I think the PM should drive this.
Mm-hmm.
Doing an assessment of a feature that's not really used much, remove it, see what happens. That's at the PM.
Are PMs in your organization empowered to do that?
Yes. Yeah. They absolutely. We're looking into this way of thinking and trying to experiment with this type of motion. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And when a PM is aware that this is the way to signal to the organization that we're outcome centric, outcome driven, then yes, absolutely.
So yeah, go on.
No, I was just gonna transition to your point on leadership and how what does leadership need to confront today? And I think the uncomfortable truth that we kind of don't really talk about it much is that most product teams are still seen by the organization, by the executives. They're seen as a cost center, and not necessarily as a growth engine. And I talk about this quite a bit, like transitioning from a cost center to a growth engine. Product teams are growth engines. We like to talk about being strategic. We like driving the business, but if you really look closely, too many product teams are measured by speed, and not by revenue, not by customer impact.
Mm-hmm.
So when times are tough, okay, product budgets are cut, and because we really haven't proven that we're indispensable for growth, we're seen as a cost center.
And that's a responsibility of the product leadership to prove that to the company leadership that's how they should be measured.
Correct. Exactly right. So I had a moment some time ago where I was at a board meeting where someone asked, if we cut the product team in half, what happens? So the uncomfortable part of that question is that nobody really had a good answer. And that's on us. That's on us. So we have to stop hiding behind roadmaps, hiding behind rituals, hiding behind frameworks, hiding behind all the things that kind of differentiate the product teams from other teams, and start tying every single thing that we do to business value.
But I guess what I would ask you is then, well, most PMs I know, at least in the local market, are not there. Maybe 90% are not there. Maybe 10% are there, but 90% are still not mature enough to even understand that, or they don't have the tools, either because they don't have the financial, skills, or they are in organizations where that is not valid somehow. So how do you train your PMs, your team, to recognize and to go from, as the name of the talk implies, from roadmap to revenue? How do you do that? And I don't want to get ahead of the talk that you're going to give at Productize. Also, that's not in my best interest. If you want to check it out, just buy the ticket and come to the conference. But how do you give us just a glimpse of how to redesign the product org for that mindset?
You're 100% absolutely right that most tech companies today, especially here in Portugal and in Europe in general, are not there. And this is the wave. This is the looking ahead, looking in the future, how we position our product in general into a driver. We're in the driver's seat, and we add that strategic aspect of what we do and what we bring to the table. And we're not there. Just like I was mentioning earlier, you go from on-prem to SaaS to subscriptions to now AI. You have this transition into the technology transitions over the last few decades. The function itself is evolving at the same time, and you go from ticket taker, making sure that engineers they're fed, they know what to do, making sure the backlog is cleaned up, it's groomed, all of that, into more of a business function where you're driving business. The product function sits in the middle of the organization, touches all different aspects of whether it's finance or sales or marketing, go to market, support, development. So transitioning from just executing and building into more doing the right thing. So it's a strategic way of thinking, of decision making that moves the business forward, not just building products because it's cool. Now, how do I talk about it to my team? We do workshops. We sit down, we talk. I find also product people that have similar mindset. We sit down, we discuss, we test. We go into one small change into the next, and then you start with small wins, and then you kind of it takes time. It's not easy, especially this is culture changing. You don't need to convince one person. You need to convince the whole organization, and that it's a challenge. It's a challenge, especially here in Europe.
All right. I don't resist making one last question. Why here in Europe? And you're not the first American that tells me that, by the way. But I think you might have your own perspective. So I'd like to hear from you.
I liked it, and this is purely kind of like my interpretation of the why. But I feel like it's very much cultural. And it's also very much tied to the appetite for risk. And the reason I say that, it's because when you take risk as a good thing versus you take the risk as a bad thing, you position your whole company, your whole business in a very different place. If you are taking bold opportunities and fully being fully okay with failing, and I mean the risk taking kind of ties back with being accepting failure. If accepting failure is a badge of honor, which is kind of the culture in Silicon Valley, failing in Europe is seen as a bad thing. You don't know what you're doing. You fail. How could you not have seen this? And that you're ridiculed. You're kind of made fun of, and that's very very top level kind of description of the bottom issue. But it's basically when you take risk, you do bold things, you fail, amazing. We learned something. Let's not do the same problem. Let's not do the same mistake again. We build upon that. And by the way, you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to make a mistake. Eventually, you hit it. Eventually, you run out of, Thomas Edison's idea on running experiments
light
back in the day.
and,
The light bulb experiment.
It tested like thousands of materials before
he did thousands of tests that all failed. Eventually, he gets it. Okay, and that's the thing. Like once you, every failure is one step closer to a success.
Mm-hmm.
And in tech, we don't see it like that here in Europe for whatever reason. It's I don't know. I want to say it's culture, but I don't know what it is.
Part of the mission of Productized is to change that mindset and to take risks and allow people to think that they should be bold. So let's take it for the conference. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Productized Podcast. A huge thank you to Blagoja Golubovski for sharing his experience, clarity, practical wisdom on scaling product and leading change. Also, a big shout out to UserCentrics, by the way. They are also our golden sponsor, so gold sponsor for making this conversation possible and for helping companies worldwide create a healthier balance between privacy and growth. And for being present at the Productized. They're going to have a booth. So if you want to know more about the company, just make sure that you approach them there. And to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe, follow Productized on LinkedIn, and secure your tickets for the Productized conference. We are selling the last tickets. We're going to have over 500 product people in Lisbon coming from 70 different locations worldwide, from Canada and US, from Brazil, all the way from Africa, from Southeast Asia, and of course, a lot of those people are coming from Europe. Remember, creating change together starts with clarity, courage, and like Blagoja remind us, take risks, be bold, and see you at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, André.